When it comes to ultimate abilities in Deadlock, there's some sounds that strike fear into the hearts of players.
Let's go.
Because they know what's coming next. And then there's others which tell us it's too late, and that our chances of surviving are slim. And then a secret third option of abilities which make you quickly decide between fighting or running. But what's also interesting is there's some non-ultimate abilities that are more telegraphed than some heroes' entire kits, such as Paradox's Carbine Shot, Vindicta's Flight, and I think McGinnis's wall vocalization is also extra loud and will probably eventually have a sliding style sound to it.
Sending out a wall!
There's a compromise that game designers have to be aware of between engaging gameplay and competitive balance. I can demonstrate this pretty quickly by having you imagine how frustrating it would be if Paradox's Carbine Shot didn't have a super loud wind-up effect, or if Lash's ultimate didn't have both an audio and visual telegraph allowing you to break line of sight to avoid it. This compromise makes Deadlock feel a lot more fun to play for both players, because it's more fun to hear Paradox charging her carbine and knowing you need to outplay her, while it's also more fun to be Paradox knowing they're trying to outsmart you, but getting them anyways. A really interesting example of this is with Pocket. Since they're notoriously slippery and able to escape, the Flying Cloak ability has 5 different sounds which the enemy team can listen for to gather information. Try and see if you can hear all of these sounds in the clips I'm going to play. 1 layer of wind blowing for the cloak traveling, 2 layers of a clock and a musical cue to telegraph that the cloak is ending, 1 sound at the end which changes depending on whether or not Pocket's teleported, and 1 magical chime sound coming from the briefcase near the end of the channel.
I need this to work. Need to plan this out.
What's really interesting though is that if you are playing as Pocket, the musical cues and clock play in 2D, or more accurately aren't spatialized in the world, whereas if it's an enemy Pocket, the clock sound and musical cue follows the cloak.
Need to plan this out. Need to plan this out.
This type of information is super valuable for competitive play because it can tell you exactly when and where Pocket is after escaping, as the cloak moves at a constant knowable speed and has a literal timer sound telling you where and when it is. As somebody who's planning to main Pocket, I almost chose a different example because I didn't want to give away this information, but it was too cool not to include in the video. Valve could not have possibly made this ability any more obviously telegraphed, and just like Paradox's Carbine Shot, it's because creating situations where players have all the information and how skilled a player is being based on what they do with that information is much more engaging gameplay and creates a much higher competitive skill ceiling. I want to examine the active items Echo Shard and Refresher. Echo Shard resets the most recently used non-ultimate ability and is often used by Bebop to double bomb people. Refresher resets all your abilities, including your ultimate, and is often used by heroes with strong game-changing ultimates like Dynamo, Lash, and Seven. It wasn't until gathering information for this video that I noticed how similar they sound, and with the Refresher sound being essentially just a shorter, pitched down version of the Echo Shard. I don't think it's fair at all to criticize anything about a game in alpha, since many of the items like Curse and Silence and many abilities are still placeholder from the futuristic game Deadlock was going to be, but I think it's a good example of audio telegraphs, and so we can make our own version of Refresher so that it sounds more different than Echo Shard. Again, we're not improving on the sound necessarily, we're just making it more different than it is currently. I should mention also that in-game, the enemy will hear these active items louder than you will on your end. Let's create our alternate version of the Refresher by resampling it. Resampling it helps us keep it similar to the original, which is a short sound with a softer tail that gets consumed in teamfights. But I want to increase the intensity, and I want to accent the fact that it's a double thing, so I want 2 hits, which I'll achieve by layering 2 different hits, but also having a delay that happens twice. By doing that and having a few more effects on it, we can create something that sounds similar enough that it's in the same family as Echo Shard, but it sounds a lot more different than it did originally, and telling them apart will probably be a lot easier now. I've also increased the intensity velocity on the transient because this item enables really dangerous abilities, so I want this to command a bit more threat when it's used.
Sweet dreams.
Something I didn't fit into the video also is that abilities like McGinnis's turrets and Lash's laughs and Viscus's various vocalizations do act as telegraphs, but I believe their primary purpose is just to ground the heroes in the world and have them feel more present. The patron almost acts like a narrator, and the soul urn almost always makes me laugh too. All of these extra sounds really make the world feel alive to me.